Friends, good morning. It's good to be back with the weekday daily Mass crew. It's been a few days since I've been celebrating Mass here at St. Bart's. I was away on vacation, as you know, on vacation with my family. It was good being in the hot weather, but I guess you guys also had hot weather while I was gone. I should have just stayed here. Although no beach here, so that was a nice perk. And next week, as you know, I'll be heading out on a retreat kind of experience. I'm going to be the chaplain for a course held at the Theology of the Body Institute. If you've never heard of the Theology of the Body Institute, it's an incredible apostolate, incredible ministry that promotes and promulgates the world-changing, life-changing teaching of St. John Paul II, Theology of the Body. So this course that is happening next week, it's called Poets for the Kingdom. So what is it? It's a look into the sacramental imaginations of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. So it's looking at the Catholic worldview, the Catholic way of viewing reality, but as exemplified in the writings and stories of these two incredible men. What I want to do here, I want to share an excerpt, though, from a different book, but it's a fascinating book that... one of the coolest books, one of the best books I've read in the past few years. It's a book by Rod Dreher. Came out, I think, 2021. It's called Live Not by Lies. In this book, what is he doing? He's talking to people who survived communistic regimes. He's talking to people who lived under communism, and he's telling their stories kind of as this warning sign of this rising tide of soft totalitarianism that he sees happening in this country. Basically, it's like a survival guide for Christians living in very, very difficult times. That's what this book is. So in one section of the book, Live Not by Lies, Rod Dreher, he's talking about the family as the essential resistance cell to totalitarianism. And he highlights one family in particular, the Benda family. Václav and his wife Kamila Benda. They were from the Czech Republic. They were a pivotal, a pylon of Christianity, of the faith in the Czech Republic during the rise of communism, which is really impressive given that it's one of the most atheistic countries in Europe, and that's saying something. So anyway, all of their children, all of the Benda children, and all of their Benda grandchildren, they're not merely moderate, lukewarm Catholics, they are sold out, devout, on-fire disciples. Every single one of their children, every single one of the grandchildren, and now the great-grandchildren. And he's just asking, what made it so? How did that come about? They lived in such a way that their children were inoculated. They were inoculated from the lies that were just being breathed upon them. They knew who the enemy was. That was critical. They knew who the enemy was, and they knew that truth and falsity were real things. They knew that they were real, that right and wrong was real. They knew that. Okay, before I get to the passage, though, you'll see why I have this in mind in just a second. All of this is just set up against the backdrop of this gospel we just heard. We're all familiar with this gospel, this really psychotic scene from the gospel where you've got Herod and his psychopath wife and their super psychopathic daughter. Someone needs to do something for this girl, right? I'd like the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Oh, thank you, right? Someone should do something for this girl. Anyway, this is a horrible, gruesome gospel. Herod, what do you see on display? You see Herod's weakness. You see this feckless man, this drunkard, this slimy, power-hungry, lust-driven, lust-filled, glutton, vacuous, amoral man, right? What has he been doing? He's been going along, giving into evil his whole life. He's going along with evil, even though he knew better. Even though he knew better. He was someone whose lukewarm life of duplicity made him he just lived in the gray. He lived in the gray, who lived by lies for so many years. And then now here comes John into his world. John, who comes like lightning, who comes like this spotlight, who comes like this trumpet blast of truth, this scalpel cutting away and excising death from health. And he's saying, you, Herod, are doing something unlawful. Herodias, you are doing something unlawful. And both of them couldn't stomach it. And so what do? They dispatched him, serving up his prophetic head on a silver platter is what they end up doing. Okay, so that's the backdrop for this, why this section from Roger's book came to my mind. So, back to the book. The Benda family, how they inoculated their children from becoming sons and daughters of Herod, how they prevented them from becoming little Herods. Okay, so here's from the book. Despite the demands of her job, teaching at the university, Camila made time to read aloud to her children for 2 to 3 hours daily. Every day? I asked, stunned. Every day, she affirms. She read them fairy tales, myths, adventure stories, and even some horror classics. More than any other novel, though, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings was a cornerstone of her family's collective imagination. Why Tolkien? I asked. Because we knew Mordor was real. We felt that their story, that of the hobbits and others resisting the evil of Sauron, we felt that their story was our story too. Tolkien's dragons are more realistic than a lot of things we have in this world. Mom read The Lord of the Rings to us maybe 6-7 times, recalls Philip Benda. It's about the East versus the West, the elves on one side and the goblins on the other. When you know the book, you see that you first need to fight the evil empire. But that's not the end of the war. Afterward, you have to solve the problems at home within the Shire. This is how Tolkien prepared the Benda children to resist communism, and also to resist the idea that the fall of communism was the end of their quest for the good and the true. After communism's collapse, they found ways to contribute to the moral reconstruction of their nation. Patrick Benda says the key is to expose children to stories that help them know the difference between truth and falsehood, and teach them how to discern this in real life. What my mom always encouraged in us and supported was our imagination, through the reading of books or playing with figures, he says. She also taught us that the imagination was something that was wholly ours, that could not be stolen from us, which was also something that differentiated us from others. Okay, so what's the moral of the story here this morning? Read good stories, good books to your children and your grandchildren. Buy them good stories and good books for your children and your grandchildren. If you don't know where to start, begin with The Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia. Start there. Amen.